can't believe that season 1 is done. So just rewinding all the way back to the first episode, how it started and how it's going. We talked about our journey starting from meeting at a conference in 2020, going through the pandemic as research partners and working on issues related to Black women in public administration, and continuing the conversation to what we have now as co-hosts of the I Come As One podcast. So we're excited to have made it this far. It's just like, you know, we all have so many projects that we want to work on. So getting started, seeing it through is such an amazing feat. And we couldn't have asked for a better season. But nonetheless, we're here on our last episode to talk about how it went. So welcome, co-hosts and friends.
Hi. Beautiful Black queens. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for listening. And I think before we even go into our lessons learned and our journey, just taking the time to thank you all for being our listeners. Thank you for being our guests, joining the 10K community and really leaning into the podcast, right? Giving your feedback, leaving comments. We see them, we read them. And we really do try to take what you're saying into account as we're moving forward with the podcast. So thank you.
Yeah, and also let us not forget all the people, all the guests who have joined us and helped facilitate some of these conversations, creating safe spaces for Black women, just having these conversations that we have in the privacy of friendships and chat groups, and helping us bring that to this platform. So we want to say thank you to every guest. Also, Lauren, thank you, Lauren, for helping us bring this sort of conversation to the platform and to the audience. And she's the muscle, if you will, behind a lot of our online presence. So we thank Lauren just for that portion of for the group being able to communicate and connect with all of the listeners. So we would not have been at the last episode without the guests, without the audience, without Lauren, and without the three of us. So it's a whole sort of collective that have gotten us here. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to y'all. Going along this journey, allowing me to participate. I'm just excited to be part of the number, as they say, you know.
Yes, saints. We the saints. We know where it's going. But yeah, it's to your point, when we started these conversations, it was about community. And that's one thing, if nothing else, that we've stuck to is this power of community and how it takes this village and so much more to really make it as Black women, especially navigating all of the white and rigid and impossible spaces that we're dealing with. So we've tackled everything from careers and business and entrepreneurship to imposter syndrome and mental health, just coaching, like how to just be a better you, how to show up as your authentic self. So although we have 8 episodes, it seems like 50 really, because there was so much that we were able to learn and to share. We had our friend Kareem talking about pride and LGBTQ issues. And so it's like we had a vision, but we've also allowed space for it to organically grow into something that we can all be proud of. And we just want to keep going in that direction and making it better.
Yeah, I agree. I think I learned a lot. I had, my sister, I love my sister. She's an avid listener. Shout out to my sister. I think from my very first live, like she's all in the comments. And I'm like, calm down. You got to, you know way too much about me. So I'm gonna need you to calm down in the comment section. But there was so many times like when an episode would be released and she's like, oh my God, I love that episode. That's my favorite. And then the next one, she's like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite episode. And I'm like, wait, I have to choose one. every episode can't be your favorite one, right? You can say I love all of them, but down to the very the most recent one around mental health. I think that was the last one she might have texted me about, and just being able to see those conversations in your own life. And again, it is elevating these conversations that we have in the privacy of, girlfriend conversations or chat groups. My sister and my cousin are always talking in our chat group. The three of us spend a lot of time in chat groups, right? Before we started this podcast, but it's been very rewarding to see people be able to participate and have their own experiences validated, their own conversations validated in these few conversations we've been able to have, but they definitely have tentacles that spring out into different areas. And some of them we'll continue to talk about in season 2, but I think to your point, Fatimah, we've had some very large conversations, some much overdue conversations. And it's just been great to hear people's feedback and have them share how they've been validated in some of these conversations. So yeah, I was just excited to hear some of those things. Yeah. What about you, Khristen?
I will say along the same lines, like I have a friend and she listens to every episode. I'm pretty sure she's subscribed and like, they dropped a new episode, let me go and listen. And she will definitely shoot me the text or wait till she sees me and tells me the feedback on it, right? And it's usually, about this episode, I liked blah, 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 or I didn't know X, Y, and Z. But even in those same conversations, I've had friends who gave good feedback, just saying, sometimes all three of you sound the same. I can't figure out which one is which, and so taking that into account, I think we've done a little better.
Accent?
Listen, even with the accent, it's blending a little bit. And so it was like very good to hear that. And I think this also gave me a space to bring in my friends in a different light, right? Just inviting them to be a part of the podcast. They dropped gems, okay? Education, job hunting, whatever you want to look at it. Okay, everything you want to know, we know someone who's going to help us speak to that. I love the way we can give a different perspective. We can be authentic, we can be genuine, we can give our true account of our own experiences in this space. It's hard to navigate academia and corporate America and go through these spaces, but hearing that, others have had similar experiences on one hand makes me feel better and make me feel as though I'm not alone. But on the other hand, I'm pretty upset that this is the experience that so many of us are having. Mm-hmm. But that's part of the community, right? Just being able to have those conversations and learn and see, for me, seeing how people have been able to take that in stride and make it work.
Yeah, I absolutely. I agree. I have a friend who's starting a podcast herself. I feel excited because I kind of came up with a name for it. So I'm not going to blast the name yet, but as soon as it gets started, I'll definitely share.
Yeah.
It's another sort of, podcast about sort of starting from her own experience, but it gives an opportunity to validate other people's experiences. And so I appreciate that. I just sent, just a screenshot in our text group of a notification from YouTube that says, a new podcast or a new episode of I Come As One podcast is now available. And it's like, wow, I love getting those notifications just as a subscriber, and knowing that we are putting out content that people find useful, that validates them, that's, you see those memes on Instagram that says, how do all these we grew up in different parts of the country, some of us
same experience.
But we have the same thing. Our mamas are saying the same thing. Our grandmas are using the same cookie tin.
Yes.
Still, everybody's uncle is barbecuing with the sandals. You got the same crystal glasses. Like
the same one auntie that everyone talks about.
You know her. You're like, I see her. Yes. I know this lady. She's in my family right now. Like, and it's that kind of validation. So I love laughing about those things, but being able to see people participate, and I think to that same extent that we're validating shared experiences regardless of the traumatic sort of experiences or consequences that may come from them, or that are the impetus for some of those experiences. It's just a value. And from the beginning, first episode, I talked about my sort of important piece about this podcast was community, or is community.
Yes.
And you build community. There's something, you know, for Black people, Black women, about community. It's not just a trending topic. It's not something just to say, but it is how we've been able to sort of get along. You know, just it's to make things either worthwhile or manageable. And so to help create a space for Black women, to help validate the spaces that are already existing for Black women.
Yes.
I think I just feel privileged to have participated in that and offering another sort of space for that to take place. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting from my perspective, I'll say this, like, you guys know me. And if you know me, I'm an extrovert, right? Like, Kristen's in the room, you know, Kristen's in the room.
You know, she's in the room for sure.
She's in the room for sure. You know that. But what a lot of people actually don't know about me is I actually do not like doing things like this. Like, you guys are like, no, let's go live on. I'm like, no, that's a little bit too much for me. That's too much visibility. I'd rather be behind the mic. I don't necessarily care for that level of frontline visibility, and it doesn't match the personality that a lot of people have seen. So this is taking me a little bit outside of my own comfort zone that's inside of myself, and it's now putting me in a different space where I realize I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy sharing my story. I enjoy seeing that other people are listening. They're looking on LinkedIn. They're interested in, you know, how we got to where we're at. And actually, that might not be a bad idea for us to like take time and actually talk about our professional journeys and how we got into the space we're in, and then future where we're planning to go. I'm still figuring it out. Okay. Still figuring it.
Yeah.
I'm figuring it out every day. But just being in a new space like this, I'm taking it seriously because I'm realizing that people are listening. Like, they are literally listening to what we're saying. They're feeling it. They have experiences they want to share. And I feel like just taking it to a bigger platform. We've talked about this before. What does this look like? You know, and I'm ready to go on the road, you know?
Okay.
Like, let's make it happen. Progress.
Someone who does not like lives, for her to say that she's ready to take the show on the road.
You see?
Recording. Progress. But you know, we get our own sort of healing from participating in it. Your aha moment, the moments that stretch you and challenge you, that even in spaces where I can't really control it, you know, I think in the first episode, or maybe it was the second, Fatimah talked about the Letitra O book, you know, Start Ghetto, because it took us a while. Like, just do it, right? There's value in just doing.
Yes.
But also this sort of idea of like, I can grow in this process that I'm helping other people grow in. I don't just have to be facilitating it or offering up the space, but you know, there's a saying in churches, Black churches, that you're first partaker, right? So if you're preaching, if you're doing anything, right, you're first partaker, meaning that you have some benefit from it, right? You have it's going to challenge you in some kind of way. And I think you bring up a good point that maybe when we started, you were like, there's no way. And here you are in this episode saying, take me on the road, get me on the tour.
I'm ready. Mold me.
Somebody gas up the bus. I'm ready to go.
Exactly. Matter of fact, I'll drive the bus. Where are we going?
She's driving the bus. Well, I'm here for it. Okay, Khristen, because I'm going, because where you go, there's a party, honey. If you ever see Khristen posting, she's out here living her whole entire best life. So if she's doing something on a tour, you better be going with her, because it's going to be a good time.
That is so funny, because my friends literally say that, like, have you met her? I'm channeling one of my friends right now. And she's like, have you met her? She's lit. And I'm like, well, no, because, and I think about that reel that's going around on Instagram, and it's like your coworkers asking you to add them on social media. And it's like, nah, I can't do that. I have a whole different life. You know what I'm saying? That is me, you know, I can't show that side of me, you know?
Yeah, there's a personal version of Khristen.
Yes.
There's the
Yes.
professional
Mm-hmm.
space for Khristen, which I think, that's a conversation and we didn't have a ton of time to speak to, but
Yeah.
it's because this platform is another opportunity to show both our personal sides as well as our professional sides.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of toil with that sometimes. Like, how do you show up? It might have been, I think there's another episode that we're going to release with Khristen, and I think she talked about that a little bit in terms of how do you show up at work, right? And she talked about having tattoos and,
Mm-hmm.
different color hair and just
Yes.
how do you show up as your authentic self. And here's a space where we get to show up as our authentic self. We bring in this conversation, these topics around research and academia, but we're also laughing and joking and having sangria, if you can see, right? We get to laugh and joke and just, live out the duality. And if we even think back to Kareem's episode in terms of, and he shared why people will use the pronouns they and them, right?
Yes.
I'm not talking about I have multiple personalities, right? But that
Yeah.
who I am is on a spectrum. I can be this person this day, I can be that person that day. And here's a space that we get to both facilitate conversation, but also participate in a space where it's like show up in with all versions of yourself. And they're all welcome. They're all enjoyed.
All welcome. That's who we are.
Yeah.
We're dynamic. We're very dynamic. And I think Shawn's episode talked a little bit more about that and what she went through and how she was able to pivot, right? And I think even coming into today's economy and what's happening now, a lot more people are going to be forced to pivot. And so I know one of our next episodes will be Dr. Des and talking about how you navigate, how do you get out there and get that job? Those real good nuggets about how to network, how to update that LinkedIn, what is that resume looking like? How do you talk to people to get to that next step? I think all of those come together. And then as women that have gone through academia, and in most cases been the minority.
I know y'all, if you're listening, make sure you go over to the YouTube channel. This is not a shameless plug. I'm right?
All the emotions.
So you can see Khristen's faces. Don't get the full experience of these episodes without seeing Khristen's face because she can't hide it. Like it's there. It's inside of her.
It's terrible.
Right here. So
Shawn, I'll be lying.
Spotify or anything. Go to the YouTube channel. You can fast forward to this section. We're about 15 minutes in? 18?
About 15 minutes in, Shawn. It is so bad. I cannot hide it.
Khristen's facial expression. They are necessary for the conversation. Okay.
It is. I don't know.
Continue.
And this is a part of the problem too, even in the workplace, because things will happen and I will be like full on jaw drop. And I'm like, did y'all hear what I heard? Because what?
Yeah.
But it just reminds me to the conversation we had with Brianna, and she was talking about academia because she's on the other side of it, right? She's also a PhD student, but that is her career path. She is a leader in higher ed and what that means for her. And even with talking about salary, she's like, no, we need to add the tax for everything I'm going to have to deal with in this position because I am who I am. And I felt every bit of that, and these recruiters on LinkedIn are reaching out and I encourage people, but one recruiter sent me the, job description and the salary. And I just, I responded and I was like, so based on the current market,
that's starting off that way.
And he's like, I agree, that should be double. I said, yes, I'm gonna respectfully decline, but thank you. And I think just being in a space where you can realize your worth and your value and realizing it's okay to negotiate and pull up that chair to the table and know where you are as a person is saying that's not enough. That's not.
Yeah. I don't just need something to survive. I don't need a livable wage. I'm out here trying to thrive in every area of my life, including my finances.
Hello.
So that's,
and have you seen flight prices, baby? Because we can talk about flight prices.
that exact part. My Graham asked me, was I coming home? I said, Graham, have you seen the flight prices? Said, no, I don't fly. So then we're gonna calm this conversation down because they're a little outrageous at this point.
Right.
But yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that we assume that in the exercising of our agency that we have to do it in a certain space so then we can, because it's required in that space. But to the reference point, even of the Start Ghetto book, it's sort of like wherever you can start or begin to really employ your own agency, your own power, negotiate, do that. If it's with your kids, practice it, right? Like if you're like, I'm negotiating with these kids, or it's your job or wherever, just take those opportunities to practice, to really start to grow your own sort of practice, and standing in your own power. And hopefully these conversations help encourage that or give you some perspectives about where we're still trying to exercise our own agency. Academia, you speak to that quite a bit, Khristen and Fatimah. If you all aren't aware, if you haven't listened, if you haven't read our bios, they are Dr. Khristen.
Oh, okay.
Fatimah. I'm not going to share too. I'm not never.
You're next.
But they are PhD. They have their PhDs, and one more year, and I can stake the claim of Dr. Shawn Maxwell and many of the other guests. Right? We talk about Dr. Des. We talk about Kareem, and so there are numbers. So first of all, let's acknowledge the level of Black excellence that we have had on this podcast.
Amen.
And like, where else are you just going to get this? And there are a number of pages and things that we follow on social media. And so I want to say thank you to those groups of Black spaces that are supporting our space and acknowledging in our own experiences. But I think it's just this idea that practice your power. Even in academia, there's a give and take. It's bureaucratic structure like government sometimes.
Yes.
And as much as you may want to exercise your power, your voice, your agency, is not always support for it. There's not always space for it. There's not always opportunity for it. Sometimes you're reprimanded for it. And sometimes you just don't even see the benefit of doing it. And it doesn't even have to be clear that that's only in predominantly white spaces, right? Like it's not only in those spaces. And so I think we all are, around this table, virtual table, if you will, are still trying to practice and find spaces and challenge those spaces so that we can exercise our voices and use our agency, right? But Kristen's, one of her statements is all kinfolk, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? Woo. So not every sort of environment of community is really community. And so there's space sometimes where you do have to exercise your power or recognize that it's not always accepting of your voice and your experiences. And so we're constantly still trying to figure out those things in our own lives. So we hope that these conversations help create additional conversations in your own lives about where you might want to try things differently, where you're just either fed up and moving into entrepreneurship, or you're really going to stake the course and figure out how to really open up some space for your voice and others like you. So yeah, I would agree with you, Khristen.
Yeah, I agree with that, Shawn. And I think now that we've done so much in such a short period of time, it just sort of adds to a little bit more pressure about where we're going to go next, right? So we have talked to so many wonderful people in different spaces. And so next, and I think Fatimah touched on this in the opener, just being that we thought at first we had a vision and where we were going and who we were going to have on this podcast. And as we went along, we realized that there were other spaces we needed to tap into and different people and topics that we might have wanted to cover. And so for me, I'm interested to see where we're going in season 2. Mm-hmm. We are in a very interesting space now in the economy. And I know that it's going to impact us in academia. That's going to impact us from a social justice lens. It's going to continue to impact us financially and within our career spaces and just the economy overall, right? So I want to continue to have those conversations. And something that I learned, especially with that mental health conversation, is just taking time for yourself, like that reset, something that makes you happy, something that you can use to recharge is so important. And I find myself struggling with that, right? I struggle with it because I go straight extreme, like, no, because I want to take a trip and I think I should be in Bora Bora next week, right? It's like, Khristen, no, like that's not realistic to maintain. Like, you need to sit on the back porch with a cup of tea type of unwind, baby steps. And I'm like, thinking about where we're going in the next 6-7 months, it'd be interesting to know how people are going to find those moments of happiness and those moments of hope in the middle of what's happening, because it's a hard space. Like during COVID, we had to figure out what that meant, right? People were losing family members, they were losing friends, they were in isolation. Like we're still sort of in isolation if it carried over, right? And so everything changed. The way we went to class changed, the way we go to work changed, the way the way I run errands have changed. I'm still doing curbside pickup, for groceries.
Seriously, I am.
I love it. And so I think even within our spaces, when we're talking about healthcare, when we're talking about academia, I saw the other day, I don't remember if it was just Florida or what county, but they are missing thousands of teachers to start the school year, which starts any day now because it's August, right? Any day now. Like, what does that mean for our students? Does that mean higher student to teacher ratio? Does that mean students are falling behind? Are they going to be more lax on their standardized testing? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think I saw a similar article about here in Omaha, and I think they were just given a update of where the district was in terms of teacher and students and just resources in general. And I think, I think the pandemic came in like a raging, like lunatic and left us all just looking around. Like all we knew was that we wanted to be outside, right? Like, but what's that line in Beyonce's song? Like, in case you forgot how we act outside, right? Like we all trying to be outside, right? Like, and so no, like there are systems, there are environments that are like, no, y'all have forgotten. There's a lot to be reconsidering, like as we try to move and create new normals for ourselves. And so I think, we're hopefully maybe we having some discussions next season about how people are recovering after COVID. It is something that I see with a lot of organizations that I work with in terms of what does it look like for them? They're spending a lot more time on mental health and well-being. It was a priority before, but what does that look like in some of these spaces? What does it look like in workspaces? What does it look like in friendship groups? Like we've talked a lot about those supportive friendship groups, but maybe it isn't. And again, just what does that mean for Black women who really do value friendships, right? Like bottomless mimosas is about like a good, as Kareem says, a good kiki with your girlfriend over a mimosa or a drink. And so what is, just thinking about how people are recovering. I think that part is important. We've talked about potentially bringing on more male guests. That's always a sort of, again, people go over to YouTube, because even though Khristen tried to really manage her face just now, but I was watching her and the corner of her mouth turned up.
It did.
She really Yeah.
And I have ideas. I have a couple that I want to invite. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear their perspective. I am like, yes.
And when we were talking about just the challenge of doing that, when you create spaces for particular populations, for particular communities, and being careful not to elevate other voices because they might be relevant voices, but you don't want to perpetuate the elevation of dominant voices over a particular community that you're trying to give safe space to. And so I will, for those of you who are listeners and supporters, we do want you to know that, like, as we venture out into that space a little bit more, we're going to be thoughtful and reflective about how much, how often, who, because we want it to still be a space that prioritizes Black women's lives. And yet considering those relevant other experiences and voices and where they fit in this safe space. And so while we are contemplating that, we will do so, I think, in a very responsible way, so as not to even like not elevated above. And sorry to those men, to like make it equal, right? Like, you are just a relevant voice. You are not the priority of this space. If I'm just going to be honest about it. So absolutely. That part. So that's something for us to be considering for season 2. What other sort of things have we been talking about in terms of like season 2, either the continuation of certain conversations or some conversations we didn't have opportunities to fully talk through or even introduce?
I think I remember that education episode with Brianna, we definitely wanted to do a part 2 with that because there was so many gems that were just dropped, right? There were so many different things we could still talk about and explore, and dive a little deeper in. And I know just based on our viewership, I think there is value in digging deeper in a couple of the episodes we've already done. Even though we've done a topic, we've done it broadly. And I think even if we came in with a closer lens and went a little bit deeper, I would like to see an opportunity for us to put up some polls on our social media pages and get a little bit more of that engagement and input in real time for us to drive the direction that we're taking, right? Because they're listening and we want to hear what they have to say about where we're going with this. Like, do you want to hear more of us on mimosas? Do you want a live? I will pull it together. And
I was just about to get on that. I was really just about to get on that. Y'all
come off, Fatimah, come get me
now. Throwing the word social media around.
Yeah.
And anytime somebody said live, it was like, oh my God, we can't do it.
I was like, no.
But just thinking about how it started and how it's going, when we were hitting that social media and, you know, posting every day, 3 times a day. And when we did get on live and videos and people knew us, that was the most engagement that we had in social media. So you can just see the power of people connecting with us in that way. And plus the algorithm is all a mess. So they want you to have videos now. But I do think that is one thing we have to do in the off season as well, just to keep in touch. And moving into season 2 to still build those relationships with the audience. As far as topics though, mental health, we cannot talk enough about. So that episode with Leslie was phenomenal. So going deeper into that. And one thing that I like in general is giving people action steps, practical things that they can do, that they can implement. So not just having the conversation, but going into like, what can I do? How can I apply this in my life? And how can I heal? Like, I want to say once and for all, even though we know it's an ongoing journey, but get over some of these humps and truly, truly heal, because that was a part of our original mission too. And we have that in the description, healing from workplace trauma specifically, but more broadly as Black women.
You know, I think that's great. You know, Khristen is around here saying she's ready to take this on the road. So let's, It's,
Hit me while I'm in the mood for it.
we better start the planning right now while she's still there. We don't want no regression, only forward.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree. I think something that I've been thinking about, I think mental health and well-being is that too, and the spectrum of what that means. And I know Khristen was a little harder on herself about like, maybe I need to sit back on the back porch and maybe not so much travel, right? But for some people, travel really is a form of self-care. It is a way of really prioritizing your well-being. And I think for someone like you who does spend a lot of time working, very much invested in your work and your professional work, that while travel gives you a ton of fun, a ton of photos saved up in Google, or you have an iPhone maybe, but
I have an Android. It's okay. Talk about me.
Yes, for the Android. Okay.
Solidarity.
I'm sick of all y'all who have iPhones who come in and love and emphasize people's statements. Okay.
Right. I can do it in WhatsApp. Let's talk in WhatsApp. I can heart your comment there.
Yes. Move all the comments. I'm for that, Khristen. Move all the conversations to WhatsApp so the Android users can. Y'all having full-on conversations with emphasize and love and question. I'm like, what are all these reactions? I'm like, what? In the group chat. That's all we saying is
come on over.
It takes too much effort. I got to change to me. Google has enough run in my own life right now. I just can't change it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think like traveling is a form of self-care, right? It is for women who are very much invested in their professional lives and building, organizations that either they are the owner of or other ones, but traveling is a form of that. And so I do think exploring the spectrum of what self-care means, what does mental health and well-being mean? I think especially among Black women who find it hard to really find time to do it. But what's those, 5 minutes, right? Whether it's a challenge, like, okay, did you take 10 minutes for self-care today? In the midst of all the other things and responsibilities that you have, right? So I would like to see us, just do some more things to your point, Fatimah, to engage the audience, thinking about our 10K community, how are we building that? Thank you to everyone who is a part of the 10K community. But how are we really just coming along and taking each other along in this journey so that we are truly healing from traumas that really create impediments for us in professional spaces? So I would say that, yeah.
Along the lines of travel, one of my big, bucket list items for this podcast or other communities is to host a retreat. And so it's not just the travel, but the experience of it, because we can do a staycation too, right? But the idea of being treated well, the idea of having that engagement where we would bring our experts live, where members of the 10K community have a chance to interact with each other, where we can solve problems and do it in style and do it in a way where we're eating great food and we're pampered and we're, dressed up, but just taking care of ourselves, taking care of each other in luxury and style. So that's on the list for season 2-ish.
Right. For it, right? Or people are doing virtual retreats. And so I don't know if there are even super nice ones out there. I haven't been to a virtual retreat, but it's a thing at this point. But I do think, I think there are ways for us to just come along as a collective and really sort of build each other up, participate, get what you need from it, encourage other people who are in the process of getting what they need out of it. I like that idea.
Sure. I love the idea for a
retreat. So when is season 2 kicking off?
Let me look at the calendar.
Yes.
Step on that one.
We're gonna have to drop that on the IG,
I know. And we haven't, I don't know if we've really touched on it, but the behind the scenes aspect of it, it's a ton of work.
Oh my
So
God.
another aspiration is to really build out our team, because there's so many moving pieces to produce something like this.
Yeah.
And, we want to do it well, we want to do it in a meaningful way, but it's just a ton of moving pieces from the website. And then we have video, we have audio, we have intro spots that we do, and collecting the bios. So creating those systems to make it a high quality production. And if we can build the team to alleviate some of that, then I think it'll be even more dynamic, because we can be fully engaged in that finding of the voice, and being more in the foreground with the mission of it. So
Right.
I agree. I think something that I hope for, I'm not sure how this is going to happen, is I would love to do a few more like in-person episodes.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of energy that you get. And again, I encourage you all to go over to YouTube so you can see how the whole production of my laughter happens, right? Like, you got to
lean back,
you have to say, listen, like it's just a whole thing, right? And there's just something about just the being in each other's personal space, the looks that I tell, like you can't like just reproduce sometimes, like in the moment, just those sort of things. And so I do hope that we're able to have a few more, and it probably is just, just some more strategic sort of planning on our part to be able to do that. But I think there's something to your point, I think, Fatimah, about the retreat, that there's some value in being in a space together, having certain conversations. And what does it do to just sort of be, shoulder to shoulder with other women who are having these sort of conversations, and they give you a look like that part, like you get all of the juiciness of that.
The yes is
you feel the reverberation of a yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you feel it. And that part I really do enjoy. So that would be my wish for season 2.
I love it. And I honestly do not like the cold, but something in me is telling me that we need a Denver type of ski lodge type of setup with, the fire pit, the jacuzzi, a room for workshops, some massages or foot rubs, while kind of breakout session is the vision that I'm having here with a cup of hot tea or coffee, whatever.
Nobody's going to ski, right?
I know that. Well, first of all, I've tried it.
That part.
I've been skiing too, but not now at this age.
They don't have to, and that's fine. But it's good for a great photo op.
So I need my 2 knees to be working. I don't know if there are men out here marrying women with knees that's not working. So I need my knees to work in order.
Right, but it's a great photo op, though.
That part.
Because falling on them skis and trying to get up is just not what it's about. You know what I mean? But we could be Black girls in the ski lodge.
Snow bunnies.
I love a good layered look and a scarf and boots. I'm feeling you.
You feel me here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a good one.
I think it's a good opportunity to network too, right? We all have our own businesses, right? And I know a lot of the women who would potentially come and who do listen, they also have those businesses. And I think it's an opportunity even to help each other in that space and to expand your network from that perspective as well. Like we have Lauren, and people were like, oh my God, you guys did an amazing job. I was like, no. That is our digital, I forget what we're giving the title is, but our social media manager
and production
manager. And I give her all the kudos for handling creating our backdrops for our YouTube, all of our posts on social media, helping us with like everything that you're seeing out there is all Lauren. And I make sure to plug her to make sure that all my other friends, they want websites and updates and things like that, can utilize her. But we have other people too who are doing the resume revamps. They're doing we haven't had all of these guests on here, but they're doing consulting work, right? They're doing virtual assistant or project management work. And maybe you need somebody who can help you with that. And then you realize that it's not too expensive, and it's attainable. I'm a big fan of outsourcing and getting that work done within the community. So why not have that opportunity in Mixer to bring your business cards or whatever QR code to get to your website?
Yes, you need that leverage, right? You're always just one conversation away, one referral away from the next big thing. And I think, we've had a theme on here about Black women in entrepreneurship and business, and everyone has talked about how tough it is, or how it really makes you question who you are, or on and on and on. And sometimes you just need those partnerships. If you're a solopreneur or a new entrepreneur, that can be a fairly lonely place, because you can be great at a career, but when it comes to starting a business, there's a leap that needs to happen. And, it takes a community for that. Mentorship is what we're talking about too.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think when I think about that, I just was telling another friend, I was like, I enjoy that about Omaha, right? That I meet people who are like, oh, you do that? Well, let me just give you a car. You give me yours. Because people ask me to do that, I could do it. I don't necessarily enjoy it, but you do it and you enjoy it. So you go do that. Like what do people say? Everybody can eat, right? And so that's such an energy about Omaha that I really enjoy. And I think about how we're able to do that in this space. And I think, we've, shared some things about the podcast experience. How do you get to this space of doing that? And maybe there are people out there who want to know that sort of experience of creating a podcast or creating a site. Like, how did you get to that space? How did you get to that point? What sort of steps or process did you all take in the coming together of it? And so I absolutely do think that this platform, this group, this space is an opportunity for us to both be mentored, mentor others, to facilitate, but also participate. Like, it is a collective experience. And we hope that that's been the case for all of you, that you are listening. And, if you're driving down the road, you're like that part, or you're, I think some of us have, I think the three of us have some saying that we all say. So maybe you're in the car, you're like, listen, right? And that's your thing, like whatever it is, but you feel validated. And these conversations are corroborated by some of the comments that people have shared and left with us, the feedback, the text messages. And so I really do hope that we've been able to help you all, as you all have helped us grow and mature, and really take on in a very serious way our sense of responsibility in both supporting Black women, but also helping cultivate a space for Black women to heal. So yeah, thank y'all.
Yes, this is only the beginning. So yes. One thing you also have learned about us is that we could just talk forever and ever. So I think that is the perfect way to wrap up season 1. It's given us a lot to marinate on. It's given the audience a lot to marinate on. If this happens to be the first time that you're catching us, go back and review the season, and we will see you in season 2. I didn't hear a date.
We're working on that.
But I would say
on a date.
Give us time to regroup, refresh, and then it'll be the holidays and all sorts of things. So before January 2023, I Come as One will be in full effect with season 2. So
don't stop engaging. Please post, comment, share, participate, send us messages. Whatever you can do, we appreciate your participation, your engagement. It is really what makes this opportunity turn, right? It makes it what it is. And so please don't let the off season get you not participating, because you never know what it may mean for season 2. So we want to continue to hear back from you all, continue to just participate and be active, and we're grateful for you.
Yes. And that's note to self too, right?
Yes.
Note to selves, plural.
Yes. For
Take
sure.
care.
All right, see you
Bye.
all.